Good morning again. This is Susan Ganeshan. I'm the CMO of Clarabridge, and I'll be your host today. Today, Clarabridge is proud to bring you our latest webinar with Blake Morgan. At Clarabridge, we bring you solutions to power your CEM programs. In that, we have the most comprehensive solution for omni-source data collection. We offer you detailed customer and text analytics to get at the root of what your customers are saying. We pair that with broad distribution of those insights across your business for easy and fast social engagement. Leading brands like Airbnb, McDonald's, IKEA, T-Mobile, and many others use our Clarabridge Engager product, and they use it to engage with their social audiences. So we thought this topic with Blake was absolutely relevant for you today. Blake is a social customer care expert and advisor, and she's worked with companies like Intel, Verizon, Newmark Knight, Frank Retail, One Medical, and many more. She's a proud Forbes columnist, speaker on the topic of customer experience. She also happens to serve as the VP of Marketing Communications for the SOCAP Northwest chapter, of which Clarabridge is also a member of SOCAP. She was ranked in the ICMI's Top 50 Thought Leaders of 2015. She's one smart cookie, and she lives in Oakland, California with her husband and her two cute Yorkies. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Blake Morgan. Blake.
Good morning, Susan and everybody in the U.S. Good afternoon, all of those of you tuning in from EMEA. I want to thank Clarabridge for having me here today, and I want to thank all of you for showing up for this webinar on the evolution of social customer care. Today, my intention is to provide you some tactical tools you can immediately apply at your own organization, whether you are just starting out on your social customer journey or you are revamping something you're already working on. So I am Blake. I am your presenter today. Thank you to Susan for that wonderful intro. I am unique in that I have done the strategy for a Fortune 100 company for social customer care, but I've also actually managed the Twitter account for that brand. So I think I have a very unique perspective into what it takes to launch a social customer care program. And I was also very involved in the management of our external communities, which are hosted on Jive. And I've worked with quite a few brands, both large and small, on social customer care. And I've been doing social media for about 10 years, which in the social media world is actually a really long time. And I am Blake Michelle M on Twitter. I also have a YouTube show called Blake's Take, which I'm going to shamelessly plug right now. So feel free to head over to YouTube after the webinar. You can see some of my short videos about current events on customer experience. And I would love for you to visit my website at blakemichellemorgan.com, and you can subscribe to my newsletter where you will hear from me every week. And let's get down to tactics. Today for the webinar, our hashtag is EvoSocial. So if you hear something that inspires you, if you hear something that is zany, that is exciting, that is weird, that is interesting, I would just love for you to share it with the EvoSocial hashtag. And let's talk about our agenda for today. Firstly, I'm going to be bringing you some practical tips from big brands who are doing social well. Secondly, we're going to talk about training and developing ideal agent behavior inside the contact center for social customer care. And third, we're going to talk about how the contact center can improve collaboration with marketing, PR, sales, and all of your other internal stakeholders. So let's get right started. In the beginning, companies thought that they would be sending out their promotional and marketing materials on social media. They thought, wow, social media is amazing. It's like having new radio airwaves. We can just broadcast our messages and our customers and the community will love it. And this is actually the first tweet from Pepsi in 2009. But, well, and here's some more tweets for you from major brands. These are their first tweets. What do all these tweets have in common? They're all promotional. None of them are customer service oriented. None of them have how-to content. It's all about promoting a marketing program. And in actuality, there was a wake-up call for these brands when they started sending out messages on social media, and customers in the community did not respond saying, oh, we love your promotions, we love your marketing comments. No. They said, oh, you're on social media? Great. My product's broken. You want to help me? Or I need some advice about how to use your product. So they were flooded with complaints and customer service requests. And guess who is the most equipped to handle these requests? Your friends in the contact center. So social media provided a very exciting opportunity to the contact center, where generally the contact center is sort of in the basement of the company. It's pretty common that other departments within a big brand don't actually know what customer service does, and I say this from experience. But now, marketing, product, engineering, they all needed customer service's help when it came to answering the technical questions they were getting on social media. So I actually want to kick off by talking about Twitter. I am a big fan of Twitter because it feels almost as easy as sending a text message. And it's a very wonderful and easy way for brands to quickly engage with customers. And I know that brands were sort of nervous about Twitter from the very beginning, but I think that the brands that have really kind of dug their heels in and had fun with it and gone into it, they're doing really well. And today I want to give you a few quick examples of companies that I think are doing a really good job with Twitter customer support. When I was in Melbourne in December, I had the chance in Australia to meet with somebody at Telstra, and I was so excited to learn what Telstra was doing. Telstra is one of the largest telecommunications companies in the world, and they were once one of the most hated companies in Australia. And they decided they wanted to make a change. So they started with the way they communicate with customers and their customer service program. They launched Twitter. They have a team of 40 people watching the Twitter account. And what I think is really unique about what they're doing is any employee can report that a customer needs help and open a ticket. And here you see some screenshots. This is actually the app that the employees have on their phone where they can easily create a case for any customer they see on social media or anywhere. And I just love the message. Not only does this send to customers, but to employees. Like, hey, you're all in customer service. You're all accountable for the customer experience, and we want all of your help in making our customer experience better. So now Telstra has improved their brand, and they're actually one of the most loved brands, as I said, in Australia. And they're a huge brand. They're the third biggest brand in Australia. So it just goes to show what a little effort from a customer care perspective, especially with social media, can do to actually help with positioning, to help with marketing, and to help with customer loyalty. The next example I have for you today comes from Brooks Brothers. And what I love about Brooks Brothers is they really understand the power of being service-oriented. They understand that if you put more effort at the beginning of the relationship, at the beginning of the interaction, in the end, you're actually making it easier on your company. And what Brooks Brothers does is really simple. Anytime anyone checks in at the Brooks Brothers store, they just send out a really simple tweet. How did you enjoy your visit with us today? It's a very quick question. It's not complicated, but it really says to me, we want to know early on if there's an issue. And if there's an issue, we're going to solve it right away. Most companies would just rather watch paint dry than actually find out there's a problem. They don't want to know. In fact, many companies just make it as tough as possible for you to contact them. And Brooks Brothers understands that if they put more energy up front in the interaction, in the end, their customers are going to love them more. So in my experience, things can go very wrong with Twitter if you don't have these things. Accountability. I'll tell you a quick story. I was working in a Fortune 100 company, and I was helping to set up the strategy and manage the Twitter account. And it was the holiday season. And what happens over Christmas and the holiday season is many of us were not working. We like to take vacation, between Christmas and New Year's. Well, we had received a tweet from someone in Europe, and the issue had got thrown over the fence so many times. The customer was so livid. They had gotten a response, we're going to get back to you in 24 hours. No one did. The customer was so mad, they sent an email to our CEO which is basically the worst thing for a customer care department, because then everybody comes knocking. Are you guys doing your job? What's going on in here? And so to me, this was a good example of what happens when there's no accountability. The problem was no one took ownership over the customer. No one was kind of latched on to that interaction saying, okay, this person needs to get help, and I'm going to make it my responsibility to ensure that they get help. And that's really what has to happen with social media. It's very easy for a lot to get kind of lost between the cracks with social because you're just getting so many messages every day, but they're all important. So you don't want customers to become frustrated if they feel like their escalation is being kind of thrown over the fence to the next guy. You also want to set very realistic expectations around anticipated response. And there's some brands that do this very well where they're actually providing real-time updates about SLA on their Twitter cover photo. If you go to KLM Airlines on Twitter, on their cover photo, they tell you expected response 12 minutes, 5 minutes. To me, this is so great. And if you can do this on an individual level, it'll really help you, and it'll actually cut costs. Because what do you do as a customer when no one responds to you on one channel? You switch channels. You call. You email. You're doing everything you can to get a response. Because in this day and age, we don't have the luxury of a week to wait for a company to get back to us to fix our products. We need things fixed right away. So your program is only going to be as good as your people. In any customer service operation, you want people who are really proud to represent your brand, who really represent you well, who want to be the face of your company, even just for that interaction. And every interaction matters. And so with social media, it is a bit of a different animal than, say, the call center, or if the customer were to be right in front of the agent. And part of that is just having excellent listening skills. I think in business and in life, being a good listener is so important because you're really looking sometimes for what is not said. And you want also someone with good judgment who can be autonomous, who can make tough calls, who has common sense. You want an agent who can act as a customer advocate, again, who's going to be accountable for that customer, but also protects the brand. You need people on social who are wonderful communicators, who understand language and style and tone. And it is tough to communicate, like on Twitter, 140 characters or less. Now with DM, with direct message, you can do unlimited. But for the most part, we're dealing with a short amount of characters. So you need people who have a good grasp of writing. You need people who can translate technical knowledge in layman's terms. If you're throwing out highly technical knowledge on social media, it's probable that your customers have no idea what you're talking about. In fact, I've worked at companies where we had hundreds and hundreds of acronyms that most people in the world would have no clue what we were talking about, but we were so used to it because that is just how people spoke. Well, that doesn't work when you're trying to communicate with customers online. The last thing you want in an agent is a can-do attitude. You want somebody who is hungry, who's happy, who wants to get the problem solved for the customer, and who enjoys doing it, and who's going to have, smile in their voice. Although you can't do that on social because you can't hear voice, but you can still tell if somebody is happy to help you or not. So now we're going to talk about one of my favorite channels, and that is online communities. Communities have been around for a long time. Now we're getting more savvy with communities. Marketing is getting involved, and they're becoming a real kind of player in the customer experience space. And actually, one of my favorite examples of a community run really, really well comes from Cisco. And what Cisco has is a VIP program. So they have advocates and ambassadors who spend hours and hours and hours on the communities solving problems. They get awards for the work that they do. They have something on with Cisco called Spotlight, where they write blogs about these super users. They also invite them to do like webinars, and they do a lot of interactive content with these super users. And even once a year, they have a big conference, a Cisco conference, and they invite these super users. They fly them out to this event. They pick them up in a limo. They take them to dinner with senior executives from Cisco, and they really make them feel like the creme de la creme. And these people are contributing so much value to Cisco. And I think this VIP program from Cisco is really one of the best in the industry. And so they deserve all the accolades they get from this program. But I actually have a couple other quick examples for you today. The first one comes from Mini Cooper. So Mini Cooper is a super cute car. I'm sure you've seen one driving on the road. And what Mini Cooper does well is they really marry the online customer support and online engagement of the Mini Cooper community with an offline component as well. And what Mini Cooper does are a few things. The first thing is they say that they were one of the first to engage in social media with something called Save the Wave. And Save the Wave is a hashtag, and they encourage users to actually wave at each other. It's really simple. Wave at each other while they're driving. They take pictures of each other waving, and they just share them on social media. And it's just a fun way to build community, to show the culture of Mini Cooper, and to get users kind of sharing and befriending each other. The other example I want to share with you for Mini Cooper is so unique. I've never heard anything like this in my entire life. They have a program called Mini Takes the States, where actually a ton of Mini Cooper drivers drive across country together over a couple of weeks. And not only do these super users, these Mini Cooper zealots, drive together across country to see America, and this is in America, the executives from Mini Cooper go with them. So how many companies do you see executives actually willing to drive or do something like that across country with their customers? Not many, but this is the vibe, this is the culture of Mini Cooper, and they have a very loyal and engaged following. The next example I want to share with you is Apple. So Apple has an absolutely beautiful and elegant community setup. And here's a screenshot. This, of course, is not the full community, but what you have with the Apple communities is just a very easy to navigate, user-friendly, and clean look that is so refreshing because on the communities, it's so easy for companies to just dump tons of content onto the community. And Apple understands the power of just making it easy for customers to find what they're looking for. And what's really unique about Apple is that they don't even have Apple employees manning the communities. They are run purely by peers, and it really works. And you have with Apple so many advocates, so many people who are so crazy about the brand. And what you have is the experience that runs from the product design, down through to the website and the communities, a very beautiful, seamless, consistent experience. If you want something similar for your community or your experience, take yourself on the customer journey. Do some customer journey mapping. Figure out how does the customer get from A to Z on our communities, on our different customer channels. And that's something that you can learn from Apple about. Lastly, let's talk about the Sephora Beauty Talk community. This is one of, I think, the most referenced communities in the industry because they do such a good job of engaging their super users. You know, when it comes to makeup, it's such a fun space because it's all about how-to content. Some of the biggest YouTube stars became famous because they did makeup tutorials. And so there's a lot of opportunity with things like makeup to provide how-to content, to provide training, and to provide a forum where peers can share best practices with each other. And I was actually on here last night, and I was reading some posts, and one user was just saying what a bad day she had, and a bunch of other users were hopping and saying, you deserve a spa day. So clearly, they're not just going there to ask about customer support products for Sephora. They're going there for community, for the culture, for the vibe they get when they participate in the Sephora brand. And so Sephora has done such a great job of that. And they're listening. You can see here's a feedback form on the community. And what I like about this is just very simple, and they're clearly listening. And so this is just one quick example of how getting feedback from customers, how can we make this channel better? What can we do to improve your experience is so important. So not only can you do a simple form or pop-up like this on your communities, but just get on the phone with your top 10 advocates or users in your community if you can, or get on email and ask them what you can do to make the community better. And just to wrap up again with Sephora, engage your super users. There's no shortage of how far how-to content will take you, and you really want to tap into your community's passion. So we cannot talk about social customer support without hitting on Facebook. And Facebook's actually had quite a big past few weeks. They just had an announcement about Facebook Messenger, where they've made it much easier for brands to engage with customers through Facebook Messenger. And they have not rolled this out on a mass scale in the Facebook style. They're doing it slowly, starting with a couple of brands and seeing how that goes, and then rolling it out to more and more. But you can see with what they're doing at Facebook, it's becoming a much more brand-friendly place to be, where brands can much more easily talk to customers. And I know that the audience on Facebook is so much bigger, and the opportunity and potential is so much bigger than it is with Twitter. And I apologize to my friends at Twitter who probably are disappointed to hear that, but you know, all of your customers are on Facebook. And so it's an easy and quick way. Your customers love it, and it'll be good for your brand as well. But you can't just throw up a Facebook page and expect it to be successful. Again, back to hiring someone who knows what they're doing. I actually want to stop here and talk about something that I really care about, which is hiring the right type of person to man your social network. In the past, when we've seen really bad things happen on social media for brands, and I'll just quickly mention a couple of brands that have had some little hiccups with social media. They include DiGiorno Pizza, Best Buy, Clorox, Delta. These were just, actually there are tweets sent out that did not reflect well on the brand. Maybe there was a mistake. Some of them jumped on a hashtag without looking into the context and tried to be funny, and it wasn't funny. And just, you know, things that just made them look kind of out of touch or culturally insensitive on social media. A lot of these problems happened because of the people they hired. They were not experienced. You can't just hire an intern and expect that intern to be successful. In fact, when I was working at a Fortune 100 brand, our best community manager was a baby boomer. He was an engineer formerly and highly technical person who just loved his job, knew everyone, and worked really hard. So I definitely encourage you, please don't hire millennials just because you want someone who looks the part. Please definitely consider your Gen Xers, your baby boomers. These people are very good with technical knowledge. They know people at your company, and don't miss that. Don't not interview them because you think that the social media team should be young. They don't need to be young. So that said, back to my tips for Facebook, hire someone who's well networked throughout the company. They should have a good grasp of style and language, back to that focus on style and language. And secondly, make sure the community manager is empowered to get things done. There is nothing more frustrating for the customer than the customer dealing with an agent who has no power to actually do anything, who's just saying, oh, I'm sorry this happened. You wanted a community manager who can actually move mountains for your customers. Thirdly, you need to ensure the community manager can collaborate easily with other departments. A lot of the questions on your Facebook wall are not, or Facebook Messenger, are not going to be purely about customer support. They're about marketing, promotions, product, engineering, and you need people from every department who can help out with these various questions you're going to get. And then if you like, eventually create a knowledge base of all these frequently asked questions. So let's look at 3 wonderful examples of companies that are doing Facebook really well. So these 3 companies happen to be Clarabridge customers, which doesn't surprise me, and that was an accident. That was not planned. But clearly, these are companies that are committed to customer experience. They care about customer feedback, and it's not just a one-off, oh, they're good at Facebook. They're clearly doing everything very specifically, very intentionally. So let's look at these 3 examples and hear some best practices from them. So Starbucks recently announced a new drink. I love Starbucks. I love coffee. A latte macchiato with whole milk, espresso, and it's intensely bold. Doesn't that look absolutely delicious? Yes. So Evan Fox, a customer, was like, oh, that looks good, but gosh, there's so many different coffees now. It's very confusing. How do I know the difference? This question got 683 likes, so clearly he is not the only one who's kind of got coffee overload. So Starbucks responded. They were like, you've got it, and here is a sort of infograph of all our different coffees and the difference between them. And what I like about this example is that they have jumped on an opportunity to share content, to respond in real time, to take a question seriously and provide how-to or proactive content in real time. And so to me, the lesson from Starbucks is to stay on your toes and always look for the opportunity to add value to the customer. In the end, it's actually going to save you money because say this user was going to call the call center for Starbucks. That interaction can cost between $5 and $20 in the call center. An interaction on social customer service is $1. An email can cost $2 or $3. So you're seeing the cost savings by being proactive on social media. I mentioned this already, but if one person has a question, it's likely a ton of others have it too. So that's sort of the case for making a lot of these responses, no matter if it's Twitter or Facebook, public, because other people have the same questions. And lastly, the best practice is to link to external content when Facebook users have questions. Drive them to your blog. The second example comes from Tesco. So Tesco is a grocery chain in the UK, and they're always mentioned when it comes to best practices with social media because clearly they do a good job and they actually have fun. I was reading something yesterday in preparation for this webinar about Tesco where they made some joke about wraps. They're like a sandwich wrap, but then somehow tied in Drake and rap and a rap, and they were having fun and people loved it and it got shared all over. So it's an opportunity for customer support to almost engage in marketing. I mean, you don't want to be too cute or too funny because you can get in trouble. But if you have someone, again, who's really good at language and style and understands that subtle balance of being professional and being engaging, you can get a lot of positive attention for your brand. So the lesson here, there's two lessons here from Tesco I want to share with you. The first is actually just the SLA. You can see here from the Facebook page, I took the screenshot, they typically respond within 1 hour. That's pretty good for Facebook. If you could cut that down even more, that's even better. And, I wanted to actually encourage you today, if you can staff 24/7, I really believe that's your best bet. That's putting your best foot forward because social media never sleeps. You've got customers all over the world, and if a customer sends you a note on a Friday at 5, whatever your time is, whatever your time zone is, by Monday, they're going to be pulling their hair out. You don't really have the luxury of time anymore. The second lesson from Tesco is that they are so thorough. Every interaction sent through Facebook is so thorough. They follow up. They really do what they say they're going to do. And it just shows that they take it as seriously as if it were the call center or even one of their stores. So the lesson from Tesco is be service-oriented. You can be funny, you can be cool, but at the end of the day, customer service doesn't really have the luxury of being cool or funny. We really need to solve problems and take it seriously. Secondly, if you tell the customer you're going to get feedback, you're going to give feedback to someone at the company, make sure you follow up and let them know you actually did it. And the third best practice is just respond as fast as you can. Second quick example comes from Virgin. I'm going to move through these a little quickly because I see we're already deep into our time. But the key with Virgin is that clearly they are using a CRM from this interaction. You can see here the customer is telling them their interaction, their reference number, and then Virgin is saying, oh, I can see here in the CRM your interaction. And so they're actually using a CRM to track customers and giving them identification numbers. And this is so important. So you actually look like an organized brand and your departments are collaborating and you have one CRM. I know CRM is tough because so many of our companies just have layers upon layers of old CRM technology, and our companies are so big, we have many CRMs, but it's just so important with social media to get something clean, get one view of the customer if possible. And we're in the kind of last quarter of this presentation. We're going to talk about Instagram and then pretty much close. Instagram is a fun tool, but it's not the most customer service friendly tool. They don't make it easy for you to direct message your customers. But some brands are responding anyway, doing the best they can, and just kind of sifting through the hundreds of comments they get and understanding what are the most important comments that I need to respond to. So just quickly, T-Mobile does a great job with Instagram, and they actually do a great job with Twitter as well. In fact, I read a statistic that 90% of customers that contact T-Mobile on Twitter say that they don't need to call the call center or do any other customer service contact after they work with T-Mobile on Twitter, 90%, and they're happy. So that's pretty positive, a 90% success rate with Twitter. The other brand that's using using Instagram, all these apps, is Uber. And Uber, they get a lot of negative kind of comments on the Instagram because not only are they getting questions from customers, but I've seen their drivers going on there and trying to communicate with the mothership through Instagram. So that's kind of an interesting example from the sharing economy. But, no matter how embarrassing the interaction, they respond in a professional way, they show they care, and it's working for them. So the last piece I want to talk to you about with regard to being successful with social customer care is collaboration. I mentioned earlier that customer service is having to answer a lot of questions they didn't in the past on channels they didn't have to show up on in the past. And it's just so key that you're collaborating with your other departments. And one thing I did when I was working for a major brand is I actually brought people in from all the other departments, the right people, and we had a day-long social media session. And we set up groups in the collaboration environment, and we made sure that we were working in sync. And, often with customer service, I've found that marketing doesn't always know what they do. And customer service, I would say that people in customer service aren't always as well networked within the company as in other departments. Maybe they're more introverted or shy away from personal branding, and I've seen this firsthand. It's nothing bad. A lot of these people are engineers, are really smart, but it's so important for people in customer service to get out and start networking throughout the company. And it's good for you, but it's also good for the customer. So educate other departments on what you do. And lastly, something I have done in the past is share messages from customers on social media to your boss and to other departments. And that can be positive messages about your brand, or it can be product insights, and get those messages to the right people. Oh, and we're almost out of time. Just want to talk lastly about surprising and delighting. And this all started with Zappos and how Zappos would order a pizza for anyone in the contact center if that customer called and wanted a pizza. I mean, obviously this is very silly, but they were one of the first to kind of pioneer this idea of surprising and delighting customers, doing something totally out of the ordinary. To me, this is not just about going above and beyond for the customer. To me, this is an internal culture issue. A lot of our contact centers are run very tightly, very tight leash. We're still measuring how much time it takes for an employee to respond to a customer. We're still very obsessed with ROI, and we're counting every single dollar. But to me, the best companies actually give their employees a long leash. They're allowing their employees to not only solve the customer's problem, but if they see something, an opportunity to help a customer, they're going to do it. One really quick example comes from Trader Joe's. There was a snowstorm a few years back, and a woman was really afraid her dad, her very elderly dad, was not going to have groceries in the snowstorm. Well, someone at Trader Joe's just decided to take it upon himself to deliver those groceries, and I believe they were free. So these are nice things. They're good for the customer. They're good for employee morale, and they're really good for your marketing as well. And here's lastly one really fun, quick example of a bunny that was left behind at a hotel. The hotel staff clearly felt like they were free to have fun with this, and they took the bunny on a little kind of day-long, enjoyable mini vacay. The bunny went to the spa, to the pool. Bunny had breakfast. Here's Bunny watching TV, took pictures of it, and this story went absolutely viral. You're all obsessed with making things viral and marketing. What if the answer was just good customer service? And that's free. An agency's not going to charge you a lot of money for that idea. So that's all for me. I do want to close by sharing with you the ClareBridge Customer Connections Conference. I will be at this event in Las Vegas, and I would love to meet you there. They're offering a registration code here, C3 webinar. So if you use that, you'll save some money. And I am actually teaching a workshop, which I'm really excited about, on April 13th. And the workshop is about winning with social customer service. And it's at 9 a.m., which allows you to sleep a little after your night out in Vegas. And here's some of the things we're going to address, taking more of a deep dive, more so than today. We're going to talk about a framework for a successful social customer service program. We're going to talk about elegant, engaging, and easy to understand content for customers. We're going to talk about trolls, right? How to deal with negative communication from customers. And we're going to help build influence for your people in the contact center. And I want to thank Susan for having me, and I would love to take some questions if we have any.
Great, Blake. I think that was so insightful. I know there's lots of questions on the line, so let me jump straight into them. You started off by saying that the call center is most equipped to do social customer care. In our experience, also, we're seeing that maybe about 50% of companies start this social customer care effort in marketing. So what's your vision on what point in time or what signs would an organization see to pull it out of marketing and push it over to customer care?
The thing with marketing is that they're clearly very highly talented communicators. However, it's just the sheer volumes these companies are getting. It's not manageable. It's just not manageable. So I think that there has to be a very strong collaboration between customer service and marketing. In my experience at a brand, customer service actually was sort of paid by marketing to take on this workload. And that way marketing can focus on what they do best, and customer service can do what they do best, which is answer customer problems. So I'm a little biased toward customer service. I think we can also teach customer service how to be better marketers, and that will allow customer service to do a better job of managing social media.
That's great. So that is a great lead into the next question we have, which is you talked about being a good listener, and you also talked about the volumes of data. So, I'm just going to add a little plug in here for ClareBridge. One of the things we can do is we can actually tag all of your social data. We can filter it. We can prioritize it. We can get it to that customer care team and say, these are the social messages you need to prioritize and get back to in a systematic way. Now, most of our customers have a tool, but one of the listeners online asked, well, how am I going to be a good listener when I have a large volume of data and I don't have a tool to help me?
Thank you for asking that question. A lot of these tools, they don't do everything. And some of the tools are fantastic, but it's hard because none of them pick up every social media comment in every channel, everywhere all over the web. And it's only going to get harder with all these new apps that customers want to talk to you on, like WhatsApp and WeChat, and the list goes on. But it's just about doing your best and hiring good people who know what to listen for, and then taking that information back and building proactive content. But you're right, you're not alone. There is so much content, it's so hard to scale. But, bring on technology providers who are going to partner with you. We're going to teach you not only what other brands are doing, but they're going to get you in front of other brands as well, sort of an industry roundtable, because we're all kind of in this together trying to figure out how do we answer the sheer volume. So when I talked about being a good listener, it was more of an individual kind of from a community manager perspective, but it's so hard to listen to everything. We're all just doing the best we can. I hope I answered your question.
I think so. Let me ask you another one similar to that, which is just about the cross-departmental work. So the person writes that there's obstacles in other departments and understanding the importance of the social media team. So what's your advice on celebrating success when things go right, and do you have any recommendations on how to bridge the gap between the different departments that need to pay attention to this data?
So just like anything in business, it's all about relationships. So you have to kind of slowly build influence and respect and relationships with these key influencers throughout your company. And sometimes that means having someone in charge of the social media program who has the influence and the relationships. When I was doing this, I set up meetings with tons of people throughout the company just to kind of introduce them to the idea. So just like getting anything accomplished in business, it's really hard to do unless you have people who care to listen to you and believe you. There are always going to be people at the company who are naysayers, who don't care, who don't like social media. They think it's a nuisance. Just be polite to them. You know, you don't have to ignore them, but don't get too bogged down in the politics. You kind of just have to keep finding the open door to the next person who understands the value and the importance.
Great. I'm going to switch gears then to two questions, and I'm going to try to combine them together. One person said, what's the best way to deal with really emotional people? And then on the same tone, another person asked, what's your suggestion for handling a series of really bad or emotional comments for a major issue? So when your customers are in social channels and they're getting emotional, how do you just take a step back and deal?
You know, one example is Starbucks. I was reading through all of their Facebook posts, and they had put out something, I think, about the work they've done to donate money to veterans, and someone had a bad experience, I guess, as an employee, and said, you know, I'm a veteran, I didn't have a good experience, and then a bunch of other people jumped on. So Starbucks first responded with the facts that they've contributed X amount of dollars and maybe to a link to a blog post. But after that, when the floodgates opened and a bunch of other customers jumped on, or employees, they just left it. And I think sometimes, no matter how hard that is, you have to respond and then just kind of let it take its course, because you can't control what people are going to say, and sometimes you just have to let customers say what they're going to say, and you can only state the facts. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that really does. And, you know, I just wanted to add to that we see a parallel to that in the broader customer experience management space, where, you know, some of our largest customers have said they've seen firestorms, not just in social, but, you know, the call center lighting up and, you know, tons of feedback coming into the company through emails or chat or whatever. And there are some times where they make a strategic call to not answer the siren call, but rather to wait and see what happens, if it's dying down or if it's going to continue to go. But it is something, I think the one bit of advice we've heard from our customers is don't be on the social media team and let it fester. Actually tell the upper echelon of your company, communicate upwards about the fact that that's happening and that your strategy is to sit back for a little bit, but keep an eye on it, right, so that you don't get blindsided, and especially your management doesn't get blindsided. So I thought that was a great answer. There's a bunch of questions on communities. So let me just try to see if I can combine some of those as well. So hold on, let me just find that one again. Sorry for this. So one of the questions was on communities. Are they part of the .coms or the websites of major brands, or are they typically outside of their .coms? And then just tying to that, and let me ask you a two-part question. When is it okay, you gave some examples of when it's okay to point people to the community for their answer, but when is it not okay to point people to a community? When would you suggest you just give them a direct answer?
Yeah, so the first question, I've seen both with, is the community hosted on our website? I think often that's a good idea. But you know, what's interesting about communities is often people find your communities through Google. They're searching for a question. So in a way, it does matter, and I actually would recommend you have your communities on your website just to make it easy to navigate. However, most of your customers are actually finding these threads through Google. And so you can think about that when you're creating your user experience. And the second question is, when is it okay to send a customer to the communities? I think if a lot of people have already asked the same question, it's okay to direct them to communities. In fact, when I was managing Twitter for this brand, we often sent them to the communities for specific questions. In fact, I would, as a community manager, would search the web and search our communities for the question that was asked on Twitter. So I think it's about cross-referencing all of your online content to just get the customer what they need. And often with Twitter, you don't have the luxury of extensive content and room, so it's probably better to send them the longer answer on the communities, as long as it's updated.
Yeah, there's a great example of that happened to me this weekend with the snowstorm in the Northeast. I tweeted at my local government, Fairfax County, and they tweeted right back to me with a link to where the snowplows were and how the snowplows were progressing through the neighborhood. So it was a perfect time just to shove me over to the communities, if that's a good example that helps folks. So you talked a bit about hiring and not being afraid to hire beyond millennials, maybe go up in age a little bit, looking for wise and worldly people, people that maybe have other experience throughout your organization.